The last roundup.
Horror Show.
Okay, we're recording. Let me do this. Double check everything. Make sure we got levels coming through. Hey!
Yeah!
Hey! There we all are. All three of us. Do I got to hit record?
It's going.
Okay.
Just keep an eye on her.
You keep an eye on her. It's pointed
Ladies
at
and
you.
gentlemen, you've been waiting. You've been fucking waiting all 2 weeks for this episode.
All your life.
This is the last Roundup Horror Show. I am Frank.
I'm Jared. Jason.
Today we're talking 3 featured films. Up first, Subspecies from 1991. Here's the summary, kind of a lengthy one. The evil vampire villain Radu returns to his hometown Prejnar after spending years in exile. He steals the precious bloodstone, which is said to be bleeding from All Saints, from his father and kills him. Meanwhile, 2 American schoolgirls team up with a local girl for work on Romanian culture. Jesus Christ. Jared, tell me what this movie's about.
Vampire.
Yeah, it's a vampire. He's got long fingers.
Vampire with long fingers.
I'll tell you what, man. Every time, I don't know why, but every time Radu came into the scene, a song, like, I think that this could be made into a successful musical if the right people took it on, because here comes Mr. Long Fingers, right?
Yeah.
I'm coming and I'm creeping with my long fingers.
Yes.
Come on, you got some info on this first?
Yeah,
Oh,
let's
yeah.
let's give the information.
I just get so excited when I think about those long, creepy fingers.
Yeah, long nails too. Like it's really long.
Yeah, we're going to have to break down the science of those. Directed by Ted Nicolau, known for Terror Vision, Bad Channels, and all of the Subspecies movies. Also, Puppet Master vs. Demonic Toys, and many, many other movies that I personally will be looking into.
Well, and another one's the Vampire Journals, which just going off the trailer looks a lot. Has that same feel as Subspecies does.
Yeah, it's
very gothic.
It just looks like it's Romania, Transylvania. That look.
Gothic.
This movie was written by Jackson Barr
Romanian.
and David Pabian, with an unusual credit with the idea. Charles
Band just had the idea.
I imagine he has all of the ideas for every full moon picture that's ever been made, from what is the Head of the Family to all the Puppet Masters. Is he the mind behind all of those, like Ginger Dead Man?
He just has good ideas, but can't do anything else.
This is a full moon movie, which, as per usual, I love the score. I think it's fucking fantastic.
But
yeah,
see, I've seen a few full moon pictures, and it seems like they all have the same soundtrack.
They reuse things.
Like, is it like public domain, or is
No.
this someone writing this? Because it
Probably
use
paid
their-
somebody and getting their money's worth.
Full Moon Pictures. Charles
we had
Band-
one good idea, Charles Band, and we're going to use it
He
through
reuses
everything.
them.
Well, it's like, how much did we pay for this? Well, fuck it. This is going in the next 6 movies.
He
Recycle it.
reuses
Stretch that dollar.
Just this movie alone, he uses footage from it in The Talisman, Frankenstein Reborn, Planet Patrol, and Monsters Gone Wild. He
He
uses
takes footage.
from this movie. Outside of the castle, you'll use that some.
But Michael Bay does that too.
I'm pretty sure they all. I mean, if you have a stockpile of footage, yeah, you need a castle shot. Yeah, you use
Got cut. Got cut.
But once you use it in a movie, it seems like
Yeah.
you should probably leave it alone.
Yeah, well, no, Charles Band he's got a lot of ideas.
This got a tagline: "The night has
you
fangs."
don't use your socks once and throw them away.
God damn it, Jared! We're not talking about socks.
Wash
A
them
freaking movie.
Wash them sons bitches up and put them back on your feet.
They won't know. Let's just. I need a castle shot. Anyway, Jared, you was talking over me. tagline: "The night has fangs."
And long fingers, bitch. Long fingers. Oh, I love the look of the vampire. It makes me so happy because I'm not normally a vampire guy, but this motherfucker.
I agree. This Radu is like one of the best interpretations of a vampire. Like, he's one of my favorite vampires.
Yeah, I like, I really do like Jared. I'm serious. You should write a musical. Next Mississippi Bones album should be a musical about subspecies. You should sing it, and I don't know. It's just an idea. But I was envisioning actually Nick Cave playing Radu. If you've ever seen Nick Cave.
I have.
Anyways, that's all that.
Like, are you talking live or a picture?
A picture of him.
Okay, I've
like
seen
he looks a lot like Radu. Angus Scrim, boy, what a fucking waste of him they used in this movie. He looked like an old Monty Python character or something. How did they spend so much time on Radu and his long fingers, and then
where all the money went?
It was just a hook. It was an iconic horror face. Let's throw him in the beginning of the movie.
But he looked like an old lady. I don't know. My favorite character in this movie is the old dude who can't wait to blast a vampire with rosary beads. I don't know who that guy is, but he's gonna shoot it with rosary beads.
Rosary beads, carved of wood, holy relics. That is what I will shoot him with, straight to the heart.
I'm gonna blast it.
Yeah, this was one I missed. Like, it was always in the video store. I missed this entirely. I watched it for the first time ever just a couple years ago.
Yeah.
I missed it too.
Because I was at your ZTO event, and I won the Blu-ray.
Oh, yeah.
I won the Blu-ray. And even then, I won the Blu-ray. I didn't end up watching it for like another year or two. And I know Josh was always, no, you got to watch this movie. It's great. And it might have been the build-up to it. I don't think it's bad by any stretch of the imagination. It's a full moon vampire flick, and it's good.
Right.
The vampire looks great. But overall, the movie, I was just kind of like, well, that's not as good as I was expecting it to be. But saying that, watching it, I did think if it had been something I watched at 13, like when Josh watched it, like entering in the early 90s. Into horror, I watch it. It's like, yeah, I could see a lot of this sticking with me and me being like, it's awesome. But coming in 2015 and it being my first experience with it, it was fun. I've watched it since. It
is a really fun watch. If you like vampires at all, you'll probably love this. I'm not a big vampire guy, and I really enjoyed all of the. It's so vampire-y. There's
the worst thing about this movie is the video composite little minions.
Oh yeah,
the opening scene looks absolutely horrible.
But think about this, Jason. They were previously shot with human beings as those minions.
No.
Yeah, they were. And they went back in.
Claymation.
They went back in and they did them as claymation after they had already shot it as.
I don't know.
With real
all
people.
I know is that maybe not the opening scene, but in the beginning they look awful, but later on they look halfway decent. But then they go back to doing the video composite.
Yeah. I like.
They get real like digital.
I liked
weird looking.
I liked the clay minions, but it reminded me of really bad old.
Yeah, they're fine. It's just the way they
like bad gate demons or something.
Again, we see it all the time. Certain shots, stuff looks good, and then they look horrible in another shot.
Yeah, I recommend this to anybody who likes vampires, really, or anybody who likes horror. Good cheesy full moon.
Yeah, well, as far as like direct to video movies, this is very solid in that category.
I give it a 6 out of 10. And if anybody wants to make a musical, I'm just saying, it's a good idea.
I thought the atmosphere was good. I really liked it being shot in Transylvania. I liked the old castles and kind of had that old Universal set look, the Hammer horror set. The music's okay, the acting's okay, the story is good enough. And there is part 2 and 3. Actually, I think there's 4 now.
Yeah,
I think there's a 4th one.
I believe so.
I gave it a 5.
Oh, well, I'm not that far off everybody then. Yeah, I gave it a 5. You guys were like, Josh always thought I was crazy on this one because I was like, yeah, it's all right. He's like, no, it's way better. And then you guys were talking
Radu,
about,
I think, is great. Like, if you can
But-
take that character and put him in
Yeah.
Yeah.
The
another
actor,
movie.
The
Somebody
actor
has
that played
taken-
him. And I agree. Like
I love how he always has blood running out of his mouth.
they captured the feel
Yeah.
and the atmosphere, like Jason was saying. They do it. It's a solid full moon.
Yeah.
picture.
What did you give it?
5.
5.
I thought I was going to be way lower than everybody.
Somebody actually did. There is somebody who has taken the Radu character on YouTube and they review things. It's not good. I'm not going to say it's good. It's terrible. It's not funny. It could be fucking hilarious. But
Frank's like, it's not the last Roundup horror show.
It's not. Well, it's not a Subspecies musical. That's gold. And Full Moon, do it. Well, you got the footage. It's just fucking do it again,
Yeah.
Charles. All right. Well, let's go into the news.
And now the last Roundup Horror Show news.
Chucky franchise creator Don Mancini plans to bring Chucky and his friends to TV in an 8-part miniseries. The series will pick up where Cult of Chucky left off. Jordan Rubin, director of Zombievers, is set to direct Critters, a new binge. He says that the TV series is not an origin story, that the critters already exist in the world. Rubin's also confirmed his intentions to use puppets and practical effects. Blumhouse has won the rights to Five Nights at Freddy's. Chris Columbus, the director, he directed a couple Harry Potter movies. He also wrote Gremlins 1 and 2 and The Goonies. He's on as the director. A few Blu-ray releases to finish out the month. February 20th, Scalpel, Mom and Dad, and The Gate 2. And just one on February 27th, Basket Case. Arrow Video has put this out, a new transfer, so check that out. That's it for the news.
Go blow your dad, you mullet-wearing asshole!
The Monster. This was my pick.
I like to call it an hour and a half of just sadness.
It's not uplifting.
Like, we'll get into it. But the Monster 2016. A mother and daughter must confront a terrifying monster when they break down on a deserted road. Written and directed by Brian Bertino, known for the Strangers films. This movie took forever to do anything aside from make me sad for this young girl. I'm just gonna say it right now. The monster in this movie is the mother, like clearly.
Well, hold on. Let's back up a little bit, Frank.
Back up
Come
a
on
little
now.
bit. Let's get down to the story.
Hot take.
Hot take.
We got a tagline.
Tagline.
Stay in the light, and this is distributed by A24. And I think we might have done some of their stuff already, but they're another company that's putting out great movies. So, but going back to the mother, yes. So a little bit more into the story. There's a mother and a daughter who has a horrible relationship. The parents are separated. She's taken the girl back to the father. They hit a wolf, like in the country.
No, their tire blows first. And then they hit
See,
them, right?
after watching the ambulance thing, I don't think it was either. I think the monster ran them off the road.
Oh, good have been.
Because remember the big tooth she finds? No wolf has a tooth this big. And I think
I'm
that's...
pretty sure they hit the wolf.
They did hit the wolf, I thought.
I'm pretty sure they
Was
hit
it?
the wolf.
See, I always
the
took
monster
it
might have knocked him off the road.
at
I
how
don't-
dented the side of the car was and the big tooth, and then later when you see
But
the
anyways.
monster, I always took it as
Yeah,
the
let's not get hung up on that.
The monster was the one that...
Yeah, the monster's really not the focus of this movie at all, and I guess that's one knock on it is, I mean, this is more about the relationship between the mother and the daughter than anything.
Oh,
The monster, it's just there, I think, just to kind of help pace the movie along.
Yeah, I felt
To
like I
have
got
something
tricked.
But
happen.
by first, the mother is definitely the monster in this movie.
I felt
for
like
sure.
I got tricked into watching a Lifetime movie because that's what it was basically. I mean,
and
this
it points out that alcoholism,
Yeah.
how that affects everything.
Yeah.
That I was really hoping for more of a monster movie. I mean,
Oh,
it's
yeah.
called The Monster.
I was hoping that they kept showing this horrible relationship, and I thought that what was going to happen is they would get through this, get away from the monster, and then resolve that relationship, which that was the only thing that made sense to me. But that's not, of course, what happens.
Even when you guys are saying the mom's the monster,
yes,
by the end, I mean, by the end, they don't have the redeeming so much, but like even that relationship stays gray because once the monster starts attacking, the mom immediately goes into do anything to save my daughter, actually kills herself, like lets the monster eat her in order to have her daughter get away. So it becomes gray. It's like
I say that's redeeming enough.
Yeah.
It's good acting,
but it gets in that gray area of where yes, I am a shitty mom, but when push comes to shove, I will do the important stuff.
Yeah, but that's the main focus of this.
Yeah, and
I don't think it should have been.
No, it should have been the monster because it's called the monster.
But at the same time, the mother and the daughter, the actors, they sell the characters.
Oh, it's great.
Completely.
The mom is played by Zoe Kazan, I believe her name is. She is in The Big Sick. I don't know if you guys have seen that.
No.
It's a movie about Kumail Nanjiani and his. I don't know if you know who he is at all, but look it up. It's a good movie. She's a great actress. They both sell this whole. All the acting's great in it.
I thought they were good.
I've thought that I may go back and rewatch this one.
Too much sadness for me.
At some point. And that perhaps my take on it was that a lot of the movies we watched this time around had a lot of fun movies and a couple movies that I really love. And this one is dark and heavy, and not because of the horror. No. And so I'm not sure I gave it the complete fair shake it needs to be, because this is almost a drama.
Yeah,
with a really
sure.
cool with a really cool monster in it.
The horror, the monster, that's just sprinkled in, and it just helps the pace.
Yeah,
of the movie.
the two major problems I have with the movie is that it's all set on this stretch of road that they've built these 3 streetlights for.
I have it wrote down. I could not stop focusing on that the whole movie. I was like, they're out in the country.
Yeah, there's lighting. This lighting is.
I mean, maybe it's different from where we come from, but there's no street lights out in the country.
They built that. If you look it up, they built.
Well, that being said, this movie, it's lit perfectly. Like it's shot so well, and everything looks so good. It's so well lit.
I laughed at the end of it because I don't think I have so many good things to say about a movie that I didn't really enjoy ever.
Yeah, there was nothing.
I mean, like, if you were to try to, I think, anyways, when I was watching it, if I was trying to pick this movie apart, it's what the director wanted to do, and he did it flawlessly.
Yeah,
I mean,
done,
the acting
well.
is amazing. The relationship between the mom and dad. I thought the monster is fantastic.
Really?
I love the monster.
I was very happy to see a practical monster.
It's cool as shit.
It looked like the relic combined with those dogs from Ghostbuster.
And
So
you
I
could
have a little bit of a
you
problem
could
with
even
that.
say it's a little too slow, but the acting between the mom and dad and how they or the mom and daughter and how they unfold the relationship is really well paced for what they're doing.
Yeah, and it has to be too, because I mean the movie is the daughter.
It's
and
an
the mother.
incredibly made movie that the whole time watching it, I was just like, I hope this ends soon. 'Cause
This
I'm kinda
movie-
tired of watching it.
This movie serves sadness the way a lot of horror movies serve jump scares. So like it's just like, here's some more sadness for you. Look, the mom's drunk on the floor, throwing up in the toilet. There's the daughter. Oh, she's gonna hit her now.
She's horrible, and the daughter becomes horrible.
Yeah.
Because of it, but they kind of patched things up.
Yeah, and in the end, the mom gets attacked by the monster at one point. She's not doing well, and the ambulance shows up, and then the monster kills the ambulance drivers, and the mom's not doing well. So in order to save the daughter, the mom's like, I'm going to die regardless of what we do. So she runs off to get killed by the monster. That way her daughter can get away. And that's what happens. The monster runs up and just fucking tears her up. And then instead of running away, the daughter comes and attacks the monster. And then you're left with the scene with the dead mother and the mom. And like it's a heavy, sad, emotionally gray area movie where everyone's kind of heroes and villains all at the same time. There's really nothing cut and dry.
We're all really monsters. There
you go.
I think this is what I wrote down. I think the real monster in this movie is the terrible mother. What a horrible ashtray full of pubes and stale beer this woman is. That's what she says. I bet she stunk like a fucking bar floor. That's all I can think of. But anyways, overall, I wouldn't recommend this movie for anybody unless you're just feeling too happy and you want to tone that down a little bit. I give it a 3 out of 10.
Jeez. Well, yeah, Frank.
Wow, Frank.
Frank goes only off enjoyment if he enjoyed it.
What'd you give it, Jared?
What do you give it? Wait.
Yeah.
What do you? I didn't go to film school. I can judge a movie based
That's
on.
what I said. That's what I said.
Jared.
You judge
Yeah,
it based
damn,
only on your enjoyment of it, not how well it is for what it is.
And you would not recommend it to anyone? What about people that enjoy that kind of
Here's
movie?
who I would recommend this to. Do you want a good clinic on how to act in a Lifetime movie? It's good acting. If you like to watch good acting, go ahead. But I've never been made feel more sad by any movie, including Schindler's List.
And some people would say that then that's a great movie.
Yes,
Well,
some
then
people enjoy
check
powerful drama.
Hey, man.
But anyway, he gave it a 3.
Yeah.
What you got?
I'll admit it was hard to rate. Like this one totters between a 5 and an 8, depending.
What'd you give it?
A 5 or an 8 or somewhere in between.
That'll
Like,
look
it's
good on the
hard to rate.
graphics. I'm just going to flash it back and forth to 5 and
It
8.
is. It is done.
We're rating
It's-
stuff 5 through. We're
Yeah, it's done well enough. If you're into drama that tugs on your heartstrings and leaves that emotional gray area, and you like those kind of movies, this is an 8 at least. It is a really well put together movie. As far as my enjoyment of it, I was waiting for it to end.
I'd give it a rating, Jared. Come on, pick. So, but 5 between.
Rate
8.
it like I do.
God,
6.5.
dang it, Jared.
Yeah, I'm just saying,
no,
it's put together too well for me to score it low, but I didn't enjoy it enough to score it high.
You've said that 4 times now.
Well, you're picking at me, son of a bitch.
You just picked it, Frank.
Yep,
Get off.
that's
Anyway, looks great. The acting's great. The story's okay. Again, I love the practical monster, even though that's not the focus of this movie. I gave it a 6.
There you go.
All right. Well, now let's go to Jared. You got an interview, don't you?
Yeah, reading Rainbow of Death. We're interviewing Tom Breen. Unless there's technical difficulties.
Unless there's technical difficulties.
Unless there's
true.
technical difficulties.
Then we'll just play an old episode of Frasier or something.
Take a look, it's in our book, a reading rainbow.
All right, joining us today on the Reading Rainbow of Death is half of the Orford Parish small press team. He's author of Orford Parish Murder Houses. He has a story in Orford Parish's Old Gory, 2 tales of flag horror, and a wonderful tale in the Orford Parish book 3 Moves of Doom with Matthew Bartlett and Joseph Pastula. You're a good one to ask because I've said his name a few times and I think I've ruined it every time. Is it Joseph Pastula?
Yeah, you got it. That's right.
Okay. Well, then I feel less bad about ruining it. Thank you for being on the show today, Tom.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Oh, not a problem. Jonathan Rabb was the one who told me to read Orford Parish. He got me on almost all of the indie horror that I've been reading, and you were you were a bit further down the line before I finally got yours, and Orford Parish Murder Houses was the first thing I read of yours, and I fell in love with it. It is amazing. I'll just start off with that before we get going. It's written like a visitor's guide to Orford Parish and kind of a where to stop on your trip through at all the murder houses and all the grisly murders that have happened there. And it is probably one of the most entertaining books I've read out of the new or out of all the indie horror I've been reading. So before we get going with the interview, I just wanted to make sure I told you that.
I appreciate that, and I have not paid you for that endorsement at all. That is very nice to hear. Thank you very much.
And it runs through the 3 moves of doom too, like attention to small detail, especially in murder houses, and 3 moves of doom. And 3 moves of doom, it's wrestling stories, and you have the old wrestling advertisements and the advertisements you'd find in old wrestling magazines, just kind of here and there sprinkled throughout. In murder houses, you have at the end of the story explaining the grisly murder, you have the closest diner and where to get a good milkshake. It's those little things that I think make your books fantastic. So I will throw that out there as well.
Thank you very much.
Pretty much what I try to do on here is just let you guys give your take on why you do what you do and why it is people should be reading your books, and said better than I would. So the same question I ask everyone else, and you get the second added question since you have your own small press, is what is it attracts you to writing horror, and what is it that made you want to go the self-published or small press, running your own small press route?
All right. Well, what makes me want to write horror? I've always been kind of morbid, and like I was a weird kid, you know. I was thinking about this the other day. We were talking at work about who our first celebrity crushes were when we were kids. Yep. And mine was Heather Langenkamp from Nightmare on Elm Street.
Nice.
Yeah, and people were like, well, how old were you when you... And I guess I was like 7 when I saw that movie. And I always liked horror. I was always drawn to horror. And then as I got older, like I became aware that it had this stigma attached to it. And people didn't take it seriously. And so I tried to, you know, make myself smarter or look smarter and think, oh yeah, I'm not going to read horror. I'm going to read James Joyce or whatever. And I never liked it. So I was always kind of like gravitating back to horror just because I think it answers questions that other types of fiction don't really address.
Yeah.
And as for why I wanted to start writing it, I used to work as a reporter. I worked for small town newspapers, and I worked for the Associated Press. And I always liked the format of journalistic writing, but I always thought how much better the stories would be if I could just make things up. I didn't. I did not make things up. I want to stress. But stories that are, you know, just like a couple tweaks. You can think like this story would be so much better if this guy had, you know, whatever, like if this guy had been a clown or something, whatever the case may be. And that's kind of how the style of murder houses and things developed. It's like I like to take things that are sort of real world, like you'd encounter like a boring travel guide in a small town, and then make it about like grisly murders or something.
Yeah, well, and you do a fantastic job at it.
Well, I appreciate that. So I think it was more just a lifelong fixation on horror, and then kind of boredom at my day job and thinking, how could I make this a little more interesting? And usually the answer is throw a murder in there, then it gets a little more interesting.
That always spices things up.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, a ghost, a murder, sometimes both. In terms of, you know, the self-publishing, small press, DIY thing, in addition to being into horror, since I was a kid, I got into punk rock when I was about 13 years old. And there was a big punk scene where I grew up in Connecticut, and everybody, you know, like people formed their own bands and made their own records and did their own radio shows and did their own fanzines. And it was just sort of, nobody waited for permission to do the things they wanted to do. And that was the attitude I've taken forward with me ever since. And
so it didn't start from, because I've heard a couple people just say frustration. What I do isn't always quickly sellable. People don't see it as like, ooh, I can sell this when you're doing indie horror.
Right.
Always. And so some people are like, I have frustration. I wanted it out there, so I put it out. And so yours was just more, and I kind of knew that. You've been kind enough to recommend some punk bands to me, so I kind of knew you were from that vein. So that's just did you ever think about doing the other way, or was it just like that's the attitude you have always, just I'll do it?
it's kind of always the attitude I had when you mentioned Joe Pastula and I. He was also, we did a fanzine together when we were teenagers in the punk scene, and when we started talking about, hey, why don't we put out stories that we like, it was never a question of why don't we pitch stories or why don't we see if someone will publish the stories. Once you look into print on demand technology and how easy it is to make a decent looking book now, we just thought, this is great. This is like making records, in the old days. Like, why don't we just do it? And since then, I've submitted, and I've had stories published in anthologies and things, and that's fun and that's nice. But it's still, it's more satisfying to me to kind of start at the beginning with writing and then go all through the editing and hiring an artist and getting everything together, copy editing and proofreading, and then you're responsible for selling it, just like selling 12-inch records, at a show or something. And so to me, I like doing that. And I know that it has sort of a bad reputation. People, for whatever reason, in the horror community kind of look down on DIY publishing. But that also kind of, that's sort of an attraction to me too. I kind of like being thought of as a dirtbag. I like professional wrestling and punk rock and horror. I'm not trying to impress anyone.
Like that was, I kind of talked to, when I interviewed Rab, we had a bit on that. That was, I've got to meet a lot of, at least your guys' group, I guess you would call it. I don't know if you think of yourselves as a group, but Rab and Bartlett and you and Thompson and a lot of the names that pop up around the books that you guys are in. And I've got to meet a lot of you guys, and I kind of grew up in the sticks, so like just mainstream writing in general, I don't know a lot of names. Not a lot of things trickle through to me. So finding you guys and Rab, and he kind of showed me this little scene. It's always been fun comparing it to the music, because I've always been into music. So you got a music scene, you have your writing scene, you're this scene. And that was what I found the most shocking, was that there's this kind of nose in the air at self-publishing. And it really shocked me, like, that it even like, I get it in literary fiction where there's a bit more pretense anyways, but that it trickles down into horror, because that was always kind of just, I love it, it's not an insult to it, but it's always just kind of a trash genre anyways, like like punk. It's equivalent to the punk scene of old, where it's just people doing stuff to do stuff. It's gonna offend, it's gonna ruffle feathers, and there's a lot of times I think horror has some of the best comedy in it, even when it's not funny at all.
Yep.
Just because it has a very sarcastic tone to it. And so I was shocked when I didn't mean to cut you off, I was shocked when I found that people kind of stick their noses in the air at that, and it always makes me laugh hearing guys like you when you're like, well, I kind of like that too, fuck them.
Yeah, I know that Jonathan Rabb has talked about this. He gets agitated when people say, oh, I don't write horror fiction, I write weird fiction. Like, there's this, not everyone who says that means it that way, but there's this attempt to kind of like, oh, we want to separate ourselves from the horror label because it is trashy, because people think of like werewolves and Stephen King and slasher movies, and I'm fine with that. Like, I don't, like if I cared about being sort of getting mainstream acceptance or literary acceptance, I wouldn't be doing the stuff I'm doing. I just like what I'm doing and want to keep doing it. And this is it's now easier than ever to kind of be your own publishing company, just like you could be your own record label now. But yeah, it is funny to encounter like people's book sales are like in the hundreds, and like everyone's like, you go to horror conventions, like everyone's wearing like a black t-shirt or something, and it's like, and still you encounter, like, you get this high hat from people and you think, who are you kidding?
Yeah. So but in Orford Parish, your publishing house, I don't know what you call them, small press, whatever you call it. I'm totally a noob at all this. You guys, the other thing that I don't know if I've actually told you or not, but Letters of Decline was one of the earlier books that I've read, and is still, I think, at the moment, one of my favorite short story books that I've kind of encountered all this since April, when Rab got a hold of me about a Bones song, and he was like, hey, I was like, I like to read, just don't pay me to use a song for a trailer, just send me a book or whatever. And he's like, you like to read all of this. And so I started, and I think out of everything I've read, like when I start telling people about the indie horror that I've been reading, and where Letters of Decline is still usually the first, like, you want to get an idea of it, you want a fantastic example of it that's great all the way through, but not like a big novel or a huge anthology to sink it. Letters of Decline is always the first book I mention. Is that will give you a taste of everything that's great that's going on. So also on that book, I wanted to bring that up because I think when I was talking about you on last show, I don't know that I mentioned that book. I think I just stuck to the stuff that you were in. But
I appreciate it. That to me, I think is my favorite Orford Parish release so far, and I don't have a story in it, but I think every writer has a different style. And if for people who don't know, it's a book about job interviews. Every story is about a job interview, and I think that the stories in that book all have like distinctive styles, and they mesh really well together. So I'm so glad to hear you say that, because I think that to me is like the one thing we've done so far that I feel like came out exactly the way we wanted it to.
Yeah, and that's not to discount any of you guys' other books. I've really enjoyed. I have 4. I've really enjoyed. I got Old Gory Orford Parish Murder Houses, 3 Moves of Doom in that one. I've enjoyed all 4 a lot. 3 Moves of Doom. Your story in 3 Moves of Doom. I wanted to talk about that briefly, just to hear you talk about it. It's the 3 Moves of Doom. They're all wrestling stories, but yours. Like, I don't watch wrestling anymore. I used to watch it. It was what we did when I was high school, like junior, senior age. We'd get the pay-per-views, get pizza, I'd get beer, we'd get together and put each other in wrestling moves and hurt each other and that kind of stuff. And so that whole WWF, it was still WWF back then, and WCW, like, and that was in the Kane coming back from the dead, The Undertaker was throwing lightning era.
Yes.
Like when when Vince McMahon was like, I don't give a fuck what goes on. Just do some shit. Make it big and make it special effectsy. I don't give a fuck. Whatever. And that is what your story in that book totally encapsulates that whole era for me wonderfully in a real horror story. So just if you can just talk about where that one came from for a second, I'd really like to hear.
Well, thank you, first of all. And that story, I've been off and on into wrestling my whole life. Like, kind of the same thing you're describing. My friends and I were really into that too, like the NWO era and Steve Austin and all that.
Yeah.
And then I just kind of stopped paying attention for a long time, and a couple of years ago, a friend said, "Hey, there's a wrestling show at this town hall in this rural town," and I was like, "Oh, all right, well, whatever." And since then, I've really gotten into indie wrestling, and there's this kind of like a subset of indie wrestling called deathmatch wrestling, where like guys, like they use like these horrifying weapons. I mean, they hit each other with those fluorescent light tubes, and they, there's thumbtacks everywhere and baseball bats wrapped in barbed wire, and like it's just, I mean, wrestling it's obviously a performance. It's not like a competition, but like these guys really get hurt.
Yeah. This is like the ECW days is kind of where the deathmatch.
Yeah. Yes. And there's still a couple companies that do it. There's one in southern Indiana called IWA Mid-South, and there's one in New Jersey called Combat Zone. And I've always been kind of like fascinated by that, but also like really scared of it too, because like it's one thing when you see people who know what they're doing and they have a wrestling match, but it's another thing when like you can't really predict what's going to happen when you throw a guy off a roof into the back of a pickup truck that's on fire, which has happened at the CZW show. So I kind of wanted to. I thought about people who do that year in and year out, and what that life must be like, and why they do it, and how like I also want to write a horror story that doesn't end with everyone dying, like and almost like a story that's frightening, but at the same time has kind of like a awe-inspiring component to it. And I thought that deathmatch wrestling was a great setting for that, because it's frightening, but at the same time, at the end of it, you just think like, this is amazing that people do this.
Yeah, and your ending to that, it completely sells the story. Like when they start falling, it just goes crazy. It's that the whole ending to it I thought was fantastic. It was actually a book. It was the last one I got. Wrestling I was bad about that. I've never been an anthology type person or a, like here's a book about this stuff. When it does that, I'm never one to like, if I don't have interest in what the stuff is, I'm just like, whatever. Letters of Decline was actually the one that changed my mind about that, because I seen Rab putting up that he had a book coming out in it, and I was like, job interviews, I don't know that I want to read that doesn't sell me. But I was like, screw it, Thompson's in it, and Rab's in it, and Bartlett's in it, and I had read its other stuff. I was like, I'll give it a try, and that kind of kicked me in the rear a little bit, be like, I don't have to have a genuine interest when good writers are writing good stories. But even in that, wrestling was the kind of, I don't know that how gung-ho I am to read wrestling horror. So I had a bunch of stuff on this. When I ended up getting it, yours is the last story in the book, which Bartlett's is fantastic. Pastula's actually sticks with me, even though it's very slow and subtle. Like, it's just an odd story. I don't know that I'd call it horror. It's just weird.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it.
But yours was the one that ended up sticking with me, and it is The Vision of James Lee Dawson, King of the Death Matches, which is a fantastic title, by the way. But by the time I got to that story and the end of it, that was when it kind of hit me. It's like, I don't care anymore what I see these books are about. If I see writers that I like, I don't care anymore. I was clearly wrong to stick my nose in the air at horror wrestling.
One thing we try to do is like, they're short, right? It's 3 stories, 4 stories. So, Old Gory is two stories with a kind of a weird introduction. And so, the idea is like, all right, let's find a weird theme that maybe other horror anthologies haven't come out about. Like, you could do I don't want to do a Halloween anthology. Like, I feel like there's a lot of good ones out there,
Yeah.
But if it's something like at the job interview one, at that time, Joe was interviewing for a bunch of jobs, and I was conducting job interviews at my work, and we were both complaining to each other about how awful the whole thing was. And we were like, you know what? Why don't we, like, what's a good horror potential for a job interview? Everyone has to do a job interview, and they suck. And so let's find a way to make them horrifying. But, like, I think if you read a book of, like, 15 job interview stories, that would be too much. But, like, 4, fine. People might give it a shot. So I'm glad to hear you say that, because, like, that's kind of what we thought, that if people don't want to, like, commit to, like, a huge 300-page book about horror wrestling, 3 stories, maybe somebody will say, why not? I'll give it a shot.
Yeah, and that, I guess I never thought about it like that. That might, 3 or 4 stories is, I hear you, they always say, like when you're playing a show in music or on the stage doing theater, leave with them wanting more. I guess I never thought about, maybe it was the fact that I didn't try reading 300 pages of it, but every book that I've got done of your guys's, that's the one feeling I had. It's like, I wish there were a couple more. I could read a couple more of these. I wish there were a couple more. So it definitely works as a hook. I never thought of that, but that has, I could have read another wrestling story or two. And the Letters of Decline, like Joe's, I haven't talked about Joe's story in that very much. I know I've had Thompson on and Rab on, and I've talked about their stories, which both are fantastic. Joe's story might be my favorite one in the book, because it's weird, but not like his weird in 3 Moves of Doom. It's just out there. It's just crazy stuff happening.
I agree. I love that story. It's like, it's almost funny in parts because it's so weird, but it's also kind of uncomfortable.
Yes.
And the next Orford Parish thing is going to be a full-length collection by him. I mean, it's still going to be on the short side. It's not going to be 300 pages, but he lives in Tokyo, and he's lived there for 13 years now. Yeah, it's been a long time. So these are all stories about Tokyo and about Japan, and they're kind of like that story in Letters to Decline. They're weird, and there's some parts that are kind of funny, and then it gets really uncomfortable all of a sudden, and the whole thing is just like, you feel disoriented reading it, which I love. I mean, it's just he does a completely different thing that's so unique, and I'm really excited about putting out this collection of his stories.
Yeah, and I think that's the perfect disorienting, is the perfect way to describe it. I love stuff that doesn't feel the need to explain itself. It can just be what it is, but it's rare to find that done really well because it's easy to get lost in the nonsense. Like
Yes.
I have that streak running through a lot of the stuff I do, but I fully get lost in the nonsense every time. I don't. I mean, it's to the point. To the point, I would say it's almost acceptable for what it is because it's nonsense. A bit more of a joke to everything, but like it's really rare to find someone who can balance that. I think in horror, because I deal a lot in nonsense, and most of the time they're supposed to be a joke. So whatever. But I've read a lot of people who, when you're doing it in horror, if you don't balance it right, it gets lost in a joke, and then it's bad trauma rather than good horror, I guess.
Yeah.
And his stuff. So I hadn't heard that you guys were doing that yet. So I am very much looking forward to that one now.
Yeah. To your point, I think it's sort of it's better if you're going to get lost in the nonsense and just be than it is the opposite, which is a big problem in horror. Is people explain things too much. Like nothing ruins a horror story for me more than just like almost like that Scooby-Doo ending where they're like summing everything up. They're like, that's why this happened and that's what this was. And you're like, oh my God, just let it be. Like, let me wonder what it was. Like, don't tell me.
Yeah. When I think that's what Bartlett's really good at it too. Bartlett is really good at it when you can.
Yes.
And it in the end, it all depends on what tone you're going for. But when you can find that perfect line between, like, making just crazy stuff just happen, but not so much that you start laughing at it. You get that genuine disorienting feeling, and it's hard to do with word. I think I've seen a lot of movies where people do it well, but I think it's a lot easier to do just with visuals, to give it that kind of visual but only using words. I've always found that incredibly impressive.
Yeah, I agree, and Joe does it very well. So the collection should be out first half of this year, and I hope you like it. I think it's going to be really good. I've read most of the stories and I've edited them. One or two things we have to do before we can start getting into production, and then we'll unleash it on the world.
Well, I look forward to it. And I guess we ended up talking quite a bit about Joe, too, so we've covered the second half of Orford Parish. But as far as you, we know that you got the collection of Joe's stories coming out in Orford Parish. Do you guys have any other plans? And in particular, do you have anything else coming out? I know you said you had stuff in other anthologies. All I've found of your stuff is the Orford Parish stuff, so if you have anything showing up or that has recently showed up in the last year in anthologies that you want to plug, I'm listening because I would like to read them as well.
I think the most recent thing was a collaboration I did with Matt Bartlett, actually, a story that was in a magazine called Strange Eons.
I completely forgot to mention that. I got mine in the mail. They sent it to me, and it never showed up, and they had to resend it. I just got it like 2 weeks ago.
It's a really nice-looking magazine.
Yeah, it really is. I haven't had the chance to read your story, but that's like top of my list.
We were super excited to get into it because it's a great magazine, and it's something I had read before, and so to see like, my name in the magazine is a great feeling. And that's a kind of a, Matt Bartlett has Leeds, and this sort of combines a little bit of Leeds with Benedict, Connecticut, the fictional town that Joe came up with for Old Gory. So we expand on Benedict a little bit. And the second half of the year, I will have a collection of my stuff out. This will collect all the stories that I've had in various anthologies and things over the last few years, plus some new stuff. Some new Orford Parish stuff will be in it. As some of the stories are not Orford Parish related. Like there's a story about Gigi Allen in it. There was an anthology of Gigi Allen stories, and so I had to submit a story to that.
Yeah.
So that'll be coming out second half of the year, and then who knows? I do a lot of Orford Parish stuff online. Like there's a Twitter account that's supposedly from the Orford Parish Historical Society, and I've been writing like a project that might be online or might be in a book or might be both. But I don't want to say too much because whenever I explain something that I'm in the middle of, like I just lose the will to do it. Like I've already talked about it.
And now you're tied to it, yeah. Oh, and I did follow Orford Parish Historical Society on Twitter. I was not a Twitter person, but then Rab opened up that Kodo Twitter account.
Yes.
And I was like, you son of a bitch. All right. So like, I'm on Twitter, and I'm following Miskatonic Musings, Orford Parish Historical Societies, Muzzleland Press, and Sheriff Kodo, and I think Muzzleland Press follows me, and that's the entirety of my Twitter.
That's the right way to do it, honestly. Like, you just get sucked in otherwise.
Yeah. But, okay, well, and that's all what's coming up. We won't plug any of those anthologies that your stories have shown up in. That way people have to buy your book when it comes out.
That's right.
I'm really looking forward to that. And it's been fantastic talking to you. I thank you for showing up on the show today.
Well, thank you for having me. This was great, and hopefully we get to meet in person soon.
Yeah, I meant to make it to Necronomicon this last year, but I was just entering my way into financial, somewhat secure, lower middle class adulthood, and it was about 3 months too early, so I didn't have the money.
Yeah, I hear you.
I at least plan on making it, 2 years from now, whatever it is again. So hopefully we do get to meet in person. And any places on the online world that you want to plug that people can go find your stuff, find where you're at, and find Orford Parish?
I guess the best places to go, the Orford Parish Historical Society Twitter account is @OPHistory. And on Facebook, there's the Orford Parish Downtown Improvement District, which was inspired by a real Facebook page by this, a town in upstate New York that it was supposed to be like a booster kind of thing, like, oh, the great stuff about our town. And every post was this depressing, like the store closed today. Yeah. Look at all this trash. Look at this graffiti. So I just fell in love with that and created an Orford Parish version. And yeah. There's also Orford Parish Books also has a Facebook page that we occasionally post snide juvenile comments to.
Well, and there everyone goes. I recommend going and finding Orford Parish and picking up anything with Tom Breen's name on it, because as far as I can tell, it's always fantastic. So this has been the Reading Rainbow of Death with Tom Breen.
Eddie was nearly killed! And look at this motherfucker! He's leaking hamburger helper!
I am interested to hear what everybody has to say about this one.
Yeah. Let's get into it. This is the big fucking showstopper right here. It 2017
made the big money at the box office.
This is what everybody's talking about.
People are like, horror's back.
This is where people go, actually, it was never a film to begin with. It was a mini-series.
The book was better.
Are we going to get into which was better? Remake?
No, we're going to talk 2017.
Yeah.
We're not going to compare it to the old one?
No.
There's no reason to. Everybody does that. We did it on our group. Thanks for joining our group, by the way, everybody. Anybody who joined our group?
Over 260 members now.
Yeah, just keep adding
just
people.
Popped up 260 of yous.
Just keep adding people, man. That's how we keep this thing rolling along.
260 members, and we got about maybe 20 people that talk.
Yeah, let's keep
let's keep the numbers going.
Let's keep these shout-outs going for James Ray.
James Ray.
James Ray.
James, we appreciate you. You talk.
Yeah, we appreciate everybody that has been commenting and whatnot.
Talking about the Mutilator today.
Yeah, it was good. Yeah,
let's keep it going.
I like to talk about movies.
Yeah, that's what we do. Let's
talk
about it.
Good guy, James. And on the closed group, or on not the closed group, on the group page, if you want to talk about it compared to the remake, or the remake compared to the original, go ahead and talk about it.
Yeah. Talk about it.
Kind of did already, but
we can talk about it forever.
Attention.
Anyway, 2017 rated R, 2 hours and 15 minutes.
Longin'.
Frank, who wrote this movie?
Well, let's do the summary first. If you want to do the summary,
I can do a summary. Whatever.
In the summer of 1989, a group of bullied kids band together to destroy a shape-shifting monster which disguises itself as a clown and preys on the children of Derry, their small Maine town. Directed by Andy Muschietti. Right?
Sure.
Written by Chase Palmer, Kerry Joji Fukunaga.
It's something like that. Fukunaga.
And Gary Dauberman.
Yep. Yeah, and Gary did the Annabelle movies.
Based on the novel by Stephen King, of course. Pennywise is played by Bill Skarsgård.
And, of course, this is another Warner Brothers Pictures with a tagline, "You'll float too."
You'll float. Well, they all float.
Was that the first tagline?
I don't know. So I don't. Was there a tagline?
original?
It was a miniseries, of course.
Oh, so there probably wasn't a tagline.
I have the parents' guide for all the violence and gore. If you want me to go through all that for the movie,
No.
Does that ruin it?
If
all?
you're concerned, go on IMDb and check it out.
Just check it out. They had a pretty large budget for this movie, $35 million. Holy shit! Do you know how much it made?
$1 million.
Do you want to know how much it made on opening weekend?
How much?
A bunch more than that.
123,403,419.
Hammered it.
That's just good business.
Yeah.
Hammered it.
I had a really fun time watching this. Honestly, I know a lot of people probably expected me to like trash it or whatever.
I was. Maybe. I don't.
I'll
I
tell
expect
you-
a lot of people to trash it, and really, that it hasn't been that way.
There is like an exceptional amount of CGI, but I enjoyed it the same amount I would. I'm just glad they're keeping the idea going. I would like to see a continuation, after this story is told, after the next movie, maybe a little bit more of Pennywise and whatever. Maybe they don't kill him. Maybe keep it going. That sounds good to me. But
Past where the book ends.
yeah, like a new one. Like maybe get Stephen King writing that instead of all these weird shits that he
I don't
puts
see that happening, but I do see a lot more. Well, you do now. You see a lot more Stephen King
all over the
adaptations.
place.
Like he just
Popular again.
so many movies. A lot of the Netflix originals too. They're just bumping those out.
Yeah, I felt like this was watching like a cartoon variation of the story, kind of, because the CGI a lot of times does look really animated, Looney Tunes. The way Pennywise runs at people is like a cartoon.
Yeah, let me just get this out of the way right now, because the only thing that I can really fault about this movie is the character from the painting. Like, I just thought that looked awful. I think it stuck out. I don't think it fit the movie.
It looked good when it was eating that kid's face.
But it's supposed to look like a painting, though.
But that's fine. The character that they generated looks bad.
Gotcha.
It stuck out. It didn't. I didn't have a problem with any of the other forms that he takes, but that one didn't look good.
Aside from the scene where the kid breaks his arm, I thought the violence was fairly tame in this. I would let my kids watch it, honestly. I did go through all of the scary scenes.
Woo!
Listen, I did go through all the scary scenes with my sons, and they fucking loved it, man. They weren't afraid at all, and because they're all on YouTube, all of the terrifying scenes. They knew that, but they watch all the makeup shows and stuff.
I guess
They know how it's done. They watch the behind the scenes
too.
Yeah. Yeah, my daughter was not watching this, but my sons,
I would not let my 2-year-old watch this.
my sons were watching it, but they fully understand the makeup. They watch how to do that shit. So, Bill Skarsgård did a great job. His eyes look fucking wonky sometimes. He looks kind of derpy at points, but I think that was on purpose.
That's the one I disagree with.
You don't think he did a good job?
No.
I
That's where
I thought he was good too.
This-
It was a fresh take on Pennywise. I thought he did great.
the movie. It turned out to be exactly what I thought. I didn't expect to go in hating it, and I didn't. It's a solid horror movie. Overly scary clowns defeat the purpose of making it a clown to me. I don't know. It's like skulls with mean faces.
it's like a hat on a hat.
Like if you're a clown and you're gonna kill some people, especially kids, you're dressed like a clown to like lure the kids in. So when you have like the exaggeratedly scary clown, I'm immediately like the Georgie scene in this one. I'm like, fuck no. No kid in the world walks up to that fucking clown in the sewer and is like, yeah, I'm gonna reach inside. You see that clown in the sewer and you're like, fuck you, dude. You are a fucking weirdo. I mean, think about,
I would love that. That'd just be the end of the movie.
like, think about the fucking.
Everyone lives.
Remember the scary clowns stalking the streets?
Yeah.
And people were worried about it? Why were they worried about it? Because they were scary clowns.
But we're not talking about reality, though, Jared.
Yeah,
we're talking about a movie, and I don't think he. I don't think he laid it on too thick.
Yeah, his voice is very. Like, he's almost.
Yeah, but
Yoda.
think about a cartoon clown and what they would really a clown voice would sound like.
That's what my
I mean,
problem
most of them don't
was.
talk to begin with. So think about That's what a clown would sound like.
You said it though, a cartoon clown. That's my problem. He's a evil cartoon clown. Like it.
He did remind me a lot of like The Mask, like shit like that.
And maybe I said it wrong. I won't say he didn't do a good job. I don't like where they took Pennywise.
Well,
that being said,
he said in an interview that he did not want to even come close to what Tim Curry did.
Well, he's not Tim Curry.
He's not Tim Curry. It
was a fresh take. I mean, he did his own thing.
I'm not comparing it to. I
got you. I understand.
I didn't enjoy it.
Honestly, the first time I seen this in a theater, I kind of felt the same way, and I scored it a lot lower than what I scored it.
I did say, I was talking to somebody about it today, though. I did say, and if you're going to get into the old version, between the two, this is a way better movie, and I like Tim Curry way more. That being said,
agree.
There is no way to supplant Tim Curry's It in this movie. The aesthetic would be off. The vibe would be off. It's not. Right. I don't think Skarsgård did anything that ruins this movie.
I don't know, though, Jared.
It's just the weak point of Pennywise is the weakest point of this movie.
What started, Frank said he thought he did a good job, and then you said, that's where I disagree.
And I changed.
I think if we had...
You changed this right now?
No. I said maybe I said it wrong. I'm not saying he didn't do a good job at what he did. I didn't like what they did with Pennywise.
At all.
No, not really. I mean, it does nothing for me.
Okay.
So think about this, though.
Before you go, I'm about done making my point.
Before I go where?
Before I start saying words.
Before he cuts me off.
I've been trying to jump in this motherfucking pool for hours.
The plus I give this movie is they didn't rely on Pennywise like the old one did. They stuck much more with the forms he took, and all of the I liked all of them. I thought all of those scenes are great. He just pops in at the end of them, and then obviously the end fight. But a lot more of the horror through the big part of this is not Pennywise being Pennywise. It's the other forms, and so I still liked the movie. Pennywise is just the weakest part of it for me.
I enjoyed all the scenes where the kids were first introduced to Pennywise. I thought those were all solid. The kids are fucking great actors. They make the movie.
Yep. Good job casting the kids. The Losers Club.
Now, whenever they go to make this next movie where they're all grown up, I might feel differently about that in comparison to the original miniseries, just because I love that cast of adult people so much. John Ritter and fucking Judge Harry. I love that shit. But they could do, the same team, it's going to be good. I have no doubt. I give this 7 out of 10. I mean, it's a good movie. Watch it. Anybody else want to give a score?
I gave it a 6 out of 10. I thought it's good. The CG's a little, but not a little too much, but not overly distracting. The kids do a great job. It's never been one of my favorite Stephen King stories. It's cool though, but I think all the extra stuff they did solid on, so I gave it a 6.
Yeah, again, it's a 2 hour and 15-minute movie, and I don't think it felt like it. I think the pace of the movie was great, and I think the thing that helped that was all the layers of all the characters of the kids.
Yeah,
that helped pace the movie along. And it's something that me and Frank talked about when we watched it. The bullies in this, the stuff that they do, they're not. That's not bullying. You can straight up kill someone. I mean, he's trying to
cutting the H in it.
Yeah,
he was going to smash that kid's face with a fucking rock.
With a rock.
That's the book's pretty. The book's pretty crazy. If I remember right, it's been fucking 7th grade since I read the book. But if I remember right, I think they all have sex with the girl, not the bullies.
That's true.
That makes sense.
That's all of them. I think that's in the book.
Yeah.
We had to look at the age of
we had to check it out. Anyways. No, this looks great. I mean,
the main bully, I'll say, he was a little overdone for me.
He's over the top.
He'd go from 0 to hot. Quick. Hey, where are you running? Fuck it, I'm gonna cut my name in this kid.
Yeah,
he went from just chilling to
that's
hot.
what I'm saying. The stuff he does is not just. It's not just
they're
bullying.
all for it. They're all about it. They're all
these kids are going to prison.
And
for sure.
that was the other thing that I think they could have done better on was supplanting it into the 80s. Like when you watch the old like Outsiders and how kids, the poor kids acted in the Outsiders, they threatened each other with Stand By Me. I mean, you had that kind of bullying in like the 50s idea of the movie. They didn't really update it to an 80s feel in that.
Yeah.
Which I think the book took place late 50s.
If you think about it, like Pennywise is the least of these kids' worries. They got fucking horrible parents, bullies after them all the time.
Yeah, again, they're it's coming from all directions.
Yeah, Pennywise is the least of worries because you're like, hey, look at that freaky, scary clown. Just don't go near him.
Listen how he sounds. He don't even sound right.
What kind of?
He don't sound like no clown.
Yeah, like at a distance, I would be like, that clown's obviously going to kill people. I'm going the other way.
But what was your score? Did
Problem
you rate it?
solved.
Wait, no, Jared interrupted me.
Okay, let's
I'll do that.
It looks great. It sounds great. The production, I don't know how you get much better than what they did. It has everything that I want. The character development. It has a little bit of gore. I was kind of taken back from the very first scene where Georgie gets his arm ripped off.
That's probably the most gory thing.
It
was rated R, right? Most certainly for language, at least.
It just wasn't too much for me to hate. Just besides that one freaking the painting monster, I gave it 8 out of 10.
I was really happy to see it did as well as it did, because this story isn't kind of any like subgenre horror, unless you're going to say Stephen King. But like, it's not zombie horror, it's not slasher horror. It's it's just a horror. Like it's that 80s style. Hey, let's just do some horror shit. And the fact that it made so much money kind of has me hoping that that kind of 80s fuck it, let's do whatever vibe gets injected back into horror, which anything that makes $120 million in
I
its
think you're
first
gonna
day
see
in
a
the
lot
box
of it.
office, you're going to see a lot more of it.
Yeah.
So hopefully we will have a rebirth of the beautiful fucking 80s trash horror just coming
I'm for it.
out
I'm all
of the
for it.
fucking walls. I took that as a good sign. So, I'm not in love with the movie, but I'm glad that everyone else is.
We're right on track, folks. I want to thank everybody for listening to us.
Thanks, Tom
watching
Breen,
this
maybe.
thing. Thanks, James Ray, once again.
Every show.
Long-time member.
Long-time member.
James, we're going to do an interview one time.
Yeah,
sometime.
We'll get him involved. But everybody who's looking for the show, just look up ZTO TV podcast on all your things.
And if you just Google Last
Yeah.
Roundup Horror Show, like every outlet pops up.
It's a whole page full of options. Just pick one.
But if you're listening to this, you probably already know how to find it.
Look at you. We'll see you next time. I'm pointing to the computer.
Next time.
No, you stupid motherfuckers. This is a ZTO TV podcast.